Hi, my name is Jeff Rhodes, and this is another video based on my book, Creating Business Applications with Microsoft 365. And you can get it on Amazon or other resellers, so check it out. Give me a rating and also subscribe to this channel if you like the content. So what we're going to do today, some of you may have seen my video from a month or so ago where we did electronic signatures with DocuSign and with Adobe Acrobat Sign. And what I wanted to do today is show how to visualize that data with Power BI. So I've got one here, and I just sent one out, sample for Power BI video. You can see it's got a status sent to user, and the DocuSign status was created. So let me bring up that email just to kind of see where we're coming from. So I had it sent to you. I sent it to Sean Mullins. That's one of my favorite artists. So you'll see I had Paul McCartney earlier doing some stuff. So in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and sign it. I've had some other ones. Had some other ones where we voided and declined and so forth. So we'll put an address in. It's a very simple one. And in this case, oh, I see. Let's see. There we go. Sean Mullins. I'm going to adopt a new one. So hopefully Sean doesn't mind me doing that for him in this video. And so it's finished signing. And whoops, it looks like I've got two of these actually. So let's get rid of one. And as I reload that, you might recall there's a Power Automate flow that's listening for that status, and it will go in and read that status, and it'll change this to receive signature. It will write the form back to the list item. There we go. See how it says receive signature? It's completed. And if I open this, oh, looks like I got two of them in there for whatever reason, but they should be the same. So I may have run it twice. So, all right. So let's go over to Power BI. I'm going to need to copy the link for this list because we're going to connect right to that list. And bring over Power BI. I've got a blank one. I'm going to go to a SharePoint list. Oops, I can type SharePoint online list. And normally I'd want to pick this 2.0 because it's the newer one and there's some nicer things. You don't have to rename the columns. It doesn't truncate it as much. But turns out that the 1.0 is the only one that gives me the link to the attachment, which is really important here so that I can see the actual form from the Power BI. So I'm going to leave it on the 1.0 here. And if I hadn't signed in recently, it would prompt me to authenticate, but I think it's going to remember me here. So I just go to my list, the DocuSign test, and I'm going to jump right into transform data. And usually what I'll do is just go through and check all the column types. So there's just a few, like this ABC123 means that it just basically doesn't know what type it is. So I know that that's a whole number. That's the numeric one of SharePoint. It doesn't really matter, but just kind of I like that to be a number. And then this modified is also, it's a date, so a date time. So we might as well, in case we were going to do anything like how long since it got created, we'd want that to be a date time. The author is who created the form, so I'm going to work with that in a minute. Got our name, so to make it clear, since I just called it name, here I'll rename it and call it recipient. And then I'll change this one to recipient email. Then we got subject, body, status, and then DocuSign status. I'll just put a little space in there. envelope ID is important, but we're not going to display that. And then we put this verification type, that's about the same. I'm going to name this recipient date. I'm going to make that a date time. And notice how it got truncated a little bit. I'm just going to call this last updated. And then I didn't use the reason. So what we want to do next is work with the attachment. So notice this attachment files is a table, and the one we're going to actually want is a server relative URL, but I'm just going to expand them all just so you can see. So we got the file name on its own. We get this file name as path as a record. This one is a record. But what we want is this, and notice it's got all the way up through the slash sample. So let's go back to our clipboard just in case we didn't have it. And I should really, I can close it there. There we go. So I'm going to just need this first part because I need the entire path. So I'll just copy that. If we go back here, I'm going to create a custom column. And I'll just say signed forms, like that. Because if we do it right, we'll get all the forms. But we'll check that out. I may not have all that set up on this. And notice it gave me the slash, which I don't need. I'll do the ampersand to concatenate, and then I'll look for that relative URL right there. So if I go over, now we've got the entire path, so that's nice. Then the last thing I want to do is expand the author so I can get information about who submitted it, because that'll be part of our visualization. And it turns out it's not all that obvious, but the name is like this, you know, got the pound sign and that kind of stuff. What we actually want to get the person's name is the title. And then we also need the email. And I'll just let it rename it because I'm going to rename it anyway. So I'm going to call this one, click off of it. Submitter. And we'll call this one submitter email. All right, so that'll get us going fairly well. So let's close and apply. Let it upload. Refresh. And I'll go ahead and save this so we don't lose our work. Just put it over in documents. We'll just call it Power BI video eSignature. Now what else we're going to need, so let's go to the data view, is we're going to need for that those forms to be a URL that they can click on. So we're going to select here, and under data category, we'll just make that a web URL. So that should do it there. So this part I won't spend a whole lot of time. I usually like to do a single card, and I'll put the ID in here. And I'll just count distinct just in case I needed to pivot on it. I'll say number of forms. I'll put that in the clipboard in case I need it again. Go a little bit higher. I'll normally want to do a table. The only thing I want to do is I want to preserve, even if I haven't set it all up correctly on this one, but I usually like a multi-row card for that last one because there is a one-to-many on those attachments. So we'll see if it works today. We'll test it on that Sean Mullins one. Let's make this a little, I don't need this right now. Let's make this a little wider so I can see it. put sign forms on that. So that part's working pretty well. If I click on it, you'll see that's one of my Paul McCartney forms and so forth. So we'll test it and see if it's working exactly. But then we'll put the rest of the thing here. So if you might remember, we've got the title. There we go. And we'll put the recipient email, submitter email, status, and we'll put in that DocuSign status. And that's probably good. We could put the last updated as well. And let's click on sample for Power BI video. Yeah, so we did pick that up. See how it's got both our forms that are in that one list item. So that's why we kind of broke that out to that multi-row card so that it's, we don't just have to get the first or the last or whatever, because we're not entirely sure which is the one that we want. So that's kind of nice. So next thing I like to do is some slicers. And actually, let's do a couple, let's do some visualizations, then I'll do the slicers. So I'll leave some space over here. We'll just put 2 visualizations here. Why don't we put, we'll put status on the, let's see, we'll want that on the y-axis. And we'll put our thing there. We'll say, I'll rename, see it's still on the clipboard, number of forms. Let's uncheck from that so we can get it. Now what I like to do is, this blue's okay, but we can go a little bit better. If we come in here, first of all, I'll put, so let's go to the bars and we'll change this to gradient. Yeah, and I'll just, since we don't have a particular meaning of blue, I'll just change these to gray so that we reserve our color for that. And then let's see if we can get our data values on here. Always have to kind of sniff around and see if I can find where those are. There we go, data labels. All right, so it kind of shows us where we are. And then I'll change this, we'll get our other ones in there. So, all right, so let's go ahead and just do a pie chart for this other one. Where'd our record go? I guess. Nope. There we go. And we'll do our recipient. And again, we'll put the ID in. Change the count distinct. And rename. And this is something I don't like. I always change. So it's already filtered on one. And what I like to do is come over here to Format. I'll edit interactions. And yeah, it's always kind of a pain because it comes up here at the top. So you got to come up here, give yourself space. There we go. So I'm going to click on this one and see it highlights it, but I like to filter it instead. And then we'll click on this one and change that to filter as well. And then we don't get those little circles that at least I find hard to figure out what they mean. So now if I click send to user, declined, send for signature, it can come in and show that. And we could put some dates and so forth in there as well. And come in here and all of these will update themselves. Oh yeah, see this one's still doing. So let's go back and to do it again. Give ourselves a little space. Change these to filter as well. Because you have to click on the item, in this case the table, and then change it. So it'll Yeah, go like that. That's better. All right, so last thing we do is some slicers. Let's uncheck that. So I'll put status. They've changed this now. I got, whoops, maybe it's here. Yeah, I like to have the drop down. We'll do that and, whoops. Not sure what I did there. I was trying to copy it. There we go. Let's put submitter. Just that'll only be me. Now let's do recipient, but it could be, you could do that as well. And we can pick our different recipients. So, that's enough. Let's go ahead and save it. And then we can publish. Best practice is to have some shared workspace. Since it's just a video, I'll do it to my workspace. Can open that up. Looking pretty good. Don't want to take a survey. I'll usually go right to Data Hub. Go to Settings. Make sure the data source credentials are set, which usually they're not. Pick OAuth, organizational, what it already is. I'll have to select my account. Notice this is how you take over somebody else's. If you've got the right permissions, you can go in and take over, say somebody leaves the organization or whatever. Then you can turn on this scheduled refresh. So I'd probably add some time so that as those signatures come through, then we can get a visualization. And then other thing we could do, so I'm going to turn that off since we don't need it. Let me go back to home here. So what I'd probably do, I only have the one page, but I could make more pages and say, show me the ones that are out for signature, and we could put some time in there. So I do actually have one, since it's gone fairly quickly. Let's go in and do one more model, one more transformation. We kind of make this a little bit better. So if you bear with me another second, one thing I'd love to do here is look for status. So let's see, when status is received signature, it basically stopped. And so we could do a days until signature voided. Notice some of these are voided or declined, so you may want to look at those as well. So we'll say if it's voided, declined, or received signature, we'll stop counting. Otherwise, we'll count. So let's see if we can do that real quick. Haven't really planned on it, but let's see. So we'll call this days open. And we'll say if, and actually the easiest, if it's sent for signature, we'll just count it, and anything else will stop the clock. We'll do that, and that'll be a little simpler logic. So where did our status go? Oh, these aren't actually in order for whatever reason. There it is. Let me go back and look. Yeah, so our status was actually sent to user. Then take days from, or date time from, date time dot local now minus created, else we'll say modified, if I can find modified, minus created. So if it's anything else, then we'll assume it finished. So it's either been signed or it's been voided or it's been declined. Let's see if that worked for us. Yep. And we can change that to whole number. Yeah, so that's been 47 days since the other one. It looks like these others that I did today were all 0. So that looks good. And now let's edit that a little bit more. So let's add one more slicer. See if we can squeeze it in here. Oh, I don't need to go. It's not edit interactions anymore. There, it gives us a little bit. Let's make this a little shorter so we can get ourselves a little bit of space. There we go. We'll add days open to this. Maybe I'll put it right there. Now I don't want this to be, say, don't summarize. We don't need, there we go. Like that. And we'll save. So that gives us a little bit more, and then we made this just page 1, but we could go in and say, hey, show me anything that's over, 10 days or whatever, and start tracking how far it is. So that's it. Look forward to seeing you next time, where we'll build a Power Apps front end instead of going straight to our SharePoint form. So have a great day. We'll see you next time.